Hi, I'm Blake Abernathy, and I want to tell you my story. As a young kid, my parents had went through a divorce. As a kid, man, that rips you apart. So my dad had me every other weekend, and my dad lived beside my nanny and papa, and they lived beside a church. So every other weekend, my nanny made sure that I was in church. Vacation Bible school, Christmas plays, choir. She even cut the grass and cleaned the church. And I can remember as she was cleaning how I used to get up behind the pulpit and pretend I was the preacher. And in January of '95, I can recall the message. He was preaching on the fiery gates of hell and how everyone was going there that didn't have Christ in them. And as a young boy, I didn't want that to be me. So it was then when I prayed and asked Jesus to come into my heart and save me. And I believe he done that. I wish I could say it was all great after that, but that's when the enemy started working on me the hardest. And life happens. I was dealing with a divorce, and then I was losing my grandparents, and then I was going to church less and less. And then I lost my nanny, and she was the only godly influence I had. And basically, I thought I was on my own. So I thought I had to do things on my own. And turning into a young man, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. Drugs, I became addicted to meth. And by the grace of God, I put meth down, but I picked up alcohol and turned into an alcoholic. I was living like the world. I abused his grace. I abused his love for me. And I was going down a dead-end street. But I'm thankful that God disciplines his children, because all I can do is think about how the shepherd used to do the sheep that kept running away. The shepherd would take and break that sheep's legs and then put that sheep over his shoulders and carried them until they healed. And when they healed, that sheep would never leave that shepherd's side. And I believe God done that for me. He brought me to a place of brokenness through DUIs, through house arrest, through work release, through depression. He brought me to a place of brokenness, and I knew that there was only one way out of it. My only prayer up to that point was, God, get me out of this one, and I'll follow you for the rest of my life. So I'd done the church thing for about 2 years. Robert and Amy Smith invited me here to Hopewell. And every Sunday, Pastor Robbie was preaching like I was the only one in the room. Stepping on my toes, man, convicting my heart. And I know that was Christ telling me I needed to make some changes. So then in 2013, I went on my first mission trip, and the team leader was John Yelverton. And I told him my story. I told him how I was an alcoholic. I told him how I was an addict. And if you've ever been to any kind of classes or rehab, they'll tell you it's a disease and that you have it for life. And I was sharing that with him, and he looked at me and said, Blake, he said, have you ever given it to the Lord? And I got to thinking, and I was like, man, you know what? I haven't. So no sooner than we got back, I hit the altar here at Hopewell, and I gave everything to him. My shame, my guilt, things that I couldn't even forgive myself for. See, when we was doing the church, I didn't 100% give it all to him. But that day, I gave it all to him. And talking about a weight lifted off your shoulders, talking about a burden being gone, he never intended me to carry it on my own. He didn't want me to carry it on my own. And I knew at that point I couldn't do it on my own. I needed him. And ever since that day, man, I joined the choir. I married my wife. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful, loving church family. And I can sit here and say I've been clean for 13 years and I've been sober for 10, and that's by the power of God. It's not of my own. He done that for me. And all I can say is I have a new outlook on life. They talk in Hebrews about running the race with endurance. And, I have an audience of one. And as I'm running this race, I want Christ to be able to open up them heaven's doors and point me out and say, that's my boy. They say I got an addictive personality. Well, I can promise you this. From here on out, I'm going to be 100% addicted to Christ. I'm Blake Abernathy, and I'm a changed life.